Andra Yeghoian is going to tell us about her work with San Mateo County Office of Education and how they have been helping 12 local school districts.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thank you, Claire. That was so wonderful to see. I'm going to be pretty quick here. You've heard some updates along the way for those who've been with us for a while, you've heard some updates along the way from San Mateo County. So I'll be pretty quick. I just wanted to give a few more updates now that we're into October and we've got a few private schools and public schools already opened. So just really quick context, a little overview here that we are sandwiched right between San Francisco and Santa Clara and Santa Cruz. So we're in the heart of the Silicon Valley, and we are working in a context with 20 different cities and towns and 23 school districts. And within our school districts, there's about 170 public schools and 100 private schools in that whole area. And our role at a county office is generally here on the left to really do like regulatory functions for all those public school districts, to lead some student programs, but also to do some leadership and coordination. And the initiative that I lead at the county office has to do with environmental literacy primarily, but also environmental sustainability and also climate resiliency. So this work of outdoor classrooms really fits well into that. And we run a lot of different programs and services out of our initiative. But the work we're doing with outdoor classrooms and the reason we wanted to partner on the national initiative is because we are doing a lot of technical assistance for our school districts around that. So that's kind of down here in this little area. And so we started to develop, like, what does it look like to do technical assistance for our school districts and for private schools that reach out to us for help? So with myself and my colleague Naomi, who's also here on the call, we developed a little bit of a way of how we would support school districts. So our process is that we support them by giving them help with getting buy-in from their communities, but also doing strategic planning. So in a little bit, I'll show what that looks like. We also support by doing implementation support and then helping them think through continuous improvement. So that's the kind of work that we've been doing with our different school districts. And in our context, we've got stakeholders that have been engaging with us from all different levels of the school system. So we've had board members reach out to us, superintendents, folks kind of just right below that at the associate superintendent level. We have a lot of site level principals we're working with. And then so definitely we get teachers reach out to us, students, parents, community-based partners. And I have to say, I know I'm just so fortunate to have amazing site level principals in our county, really awesome districts as well. But I know that there's probably some of our site level principals are on this call, and we could not be doing this work without their amazing leadership and being early adopters. So thank you to little shout out to them. But here's a map of the folks that we've been giving the most technical assistance to in our county. So currently we're working with 12 out of the 23 school districts at a variety of levels. Sometimes it's at the site level, sometimes it's at the district level. And one of our public school districts has opened and is using outdoor classrooms. And then there's a handful of private schools, but the rest of them mostly remain in the planning stages, but are opening up here just in the next couple weeks. So we're excited to see how that's going to go for them. And this is just a really quick chart that we've been kind of keeping track of. You can see as you run down it, like about half of them we're working at the site level with the districts, and then about the other half we're working with the district, who's really trying to make sure that it is happening equitably across all sites. So every district has been approaching this very differently. So here are some of the key areas of support that we've been doing. So one of the major things that we've been doing for folks is a site assessment and overview plan. So we'll share a couple of different examples of that in the chat box. But basically we go on site, we walk with the administrators and the key stakeholders, we assess it, and then we put together a plan. And I know we've shown some of that in the past, so I'm going to skip past that. Where things go after that is that people want help from us to figure out how to do cost estimates and how to do vendors and figure out who to work with for vendors. So we're kind of in those stages of helping our districts really navigate that. And what we found, and this is for folks who are trying to approach this from the district level, we found that a lot of people don't have a lot of expertise in this area, and so they don't know exactly what to purchase or what to do. So it's really helpful when we can provide them these cost estimate spreadsheets and these customized infrastructure lists so they can really get drilled down on what it is that they're going to need. We also noticed that some of our school districts, and I'm sharing this so that people can think about if they are working with a community that a lot of folks wanted to approach this from like a modular way of thinking. So they wanted to say like, well, what if we were just doing breakout areas? Or what if we were just doing small classrooms? And they wanted to visualize it that way, as opposed to like, here's the seating, here's the shade structure. So they wanted to think about it in more of a modular approach. So we've been doing some examples like that to help get that buy-in for folks. We've also helped one of our school districts think about how to set up a prototyping classroom so that they could actually train teachers. They could have them come through the site, look at it, understand it, and they did that both for indoor and outdoor. So their goal is to really make sure that teachers feel comfortable in the space and can ask the questions that they have before that they're going to be bringing the students in. So I highly, just to come back to that, I highly recommend that as a strategy. I think it's reduced a lot of the tension between the school district and the teacher unions to have that kind of like, we're all in this together. I also want to just share that we're moving into the space of providing professional development now for faculty and staff as well. And some of it is really focused around like, how do we actually teach from the outdoors and how do we use the outdoors as a learning opportunity? So we're really excited about that. And then some of it is just like, how do we teach any subject outdoors? And again, we're happy to be supporting our school districts to kind of navigate through that. A lot of the work has been around getting funding and partners. So we found some use of being able to use CARES Act funding. So we recommend people look into that. And then some help from the more local education foundations. We were also able to partner with a couple of different county agency to help. And their stipulation for this was, as long as there's a school garden and some outdoor compost bins, like we are happy to support. So that was a good entry point for us to get some funding there. And then we were able to find some partners to join in on that as well. We're kind of transitioning now with a couple of our districts and sites to really make sure that they're embedding long-term thinking into this and really investing now in like what a long-term garden and outdoor classroom space can be. So we're excited to see people going that direction. And also working with folks to think about how can you establish a committee now with like a wide range of these different stakeholders so that you can keep outdoor classrooms moving forward, not just for COVID-19, but beyond that. And then I'll just add this last little piece. Another update is that we're at the point now where we're capturing some success. And this has primarily been with the private schools that have been able to open with waivers, have been able to do so with outdoor classrooms. So we've got 3 different case studies that you can check out on our website that are all doing a really great job bringing students in and doing that in the outdoors. And hopefully we'll be getting a few more case studies up, especially with the different public schools that are opening up. So like I said, just meant to be a really quick update here. I can pause before we do breakout rooms and see if there were any quick questions that people had, and then we can move into that segment.
This is John Rushinsky. I got a quick question in regards to the way that some of these spaces are being set up, especially here in California. Are you seeing any issues coming up in regards to the state architect and the typical approval process that they, these need to go through?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is one of the biggest challenging things for our districts is that when they want to get the shade structures, it's how do we really navigate through that? And so Sharon has done a lot of work on this. And we have on both websites, Sharon's website and our county office website, a list of the pre-approved the pre-approved list from the DSA, but that is one of our major sticking points for some of our districts is figuring that out, is how to get that and how to do it well. Any other questions from folks?
I guess I have a question. So in Austin, underserved communities are very resistant to outdoor learning, and how have you navigated this with your outreach and bringing people in to the conversation?
It's very interesting that you say that. We're working with some of our lowest income school districts have been the most on board with this in our county. And partly that is due to, at least for one of them, that there's been a past history of some community-based partners who have really done a strong job over the past couple of years, helping them plant over 1,000 trees, moving outdoor classrooms forward, getting gardens going. So we had already existing buy-in from a few of those communities. And then we have one of the other districts that's out on the coast was also really eager to do this. And they were really approaching this again from just that equity, like getting kids back, getting them back as safe as possible. The challenge that we're facing is less about the buy-in from the district or from even the community, and more about the actual technical aspects of that the numbers of COVID-19 cases are much higher in those particular school districts than in our other school districts. So like at 15% compared to like the really, really low in the other districts. So it doesn't, like right now, that's where the hesitancy is like, okay, we get it, you're in outdoor classrooms and everything, but the numbers are just too high to even realistically bring families back. So that's kind of where our challenge is right now, is more on the public health side of it, is making sure how to get those numbers down. But in terms of what I would recommend for other folks who aren't able to get that buy-in is to really look at working with community-based partners who have that like on the ground grassroots support and safety, and already connecting with the community and helping them get the school districts and key stakeholders involved. That's just been really helpful for us in our context.
Great, thank you.
Oh, and the modular approach. Yeah, sorry, I'm seeing some questions in the chat box. Yeah, so the modular approach was really about like, when we originally came to some of the school sites, we were talking about, okay, so we're assessing how much seating you have, what shade structures you have. And we were like, here's the seating you could think about, here's the shade structures you can think about. And the folks really wanted to see it as a package. So they wanted to say like, for breakout rooms, what should the seating look like? And for small classrooms that are on like asphalt, what should the whole thing look like? Like, should we have this type of shade, this type of seating, this type of outdoor stuff? And then if we're on like a lawn or on a tennis court, what should it look like? So they kind of wanted to think about it, not like seating in general, but more of like a modular, like what would it look at like for this? And that was more of like a, it just helped reframe it for a couple of the districts to just think about it like that, because they were used to doing purchasing, like they were used to like walking into a classroom and thinking about the whole thing. And so they just wanted to have the whole picture shared. And I think when we switched to doing that with a few of them, the conversation went much faster. And we have been pushing some of our vendors to present their materials and their ideas to districts in that way. And that was like very hard for some of them. It took them like a whole week to get it back with some designs, but they appreciated being pushed in that way. And I think it's been more effective for them to have conversations.
I just have a question. My name's Victoria Hackett. I'm working with the schools here in Massachusetts. They are already back in school. All the elementary schools are outdoors, and they've all created outdoor classrooms for each of the classrooms. Our biggest thing that's happening now is finding structures. And as we're going into winter time here in Massachusetts, so they're there. It's just sort of a cost thing for them at this point. They've purchased sort of weaker structures that have sort of, been destroyed in rain and whatnot. I'm just wondering if there's any advice that I can give them in terms of moving forward with structures that.
Yeah, well, let's open this up for anybody, Claire, Sharon, anybody that wants to chime in. And I think we are going to skip the breakout room. So if anybody wants to address that, that'd be great.
Thanks.
I think the weather question is partly about clothing.
Yeah.
And we like to say that in this initiative that we see clothing as part of the infrastructure for outdoor classrooms, and that to be equitable and to have equitable use of outdoor space, we need to make sure that all children are equally warm and dry. And so it's something that as a school, especially in a colder climate, is thinking about moving classes outside, think about seating and shelter and clothing all as expenses together for this initiative. And that said, I think too that the other way that we frame it is that there's that plan A. We see the new plan A is to move class outside, but there will always be a plan B. And for every school in every climate, there's a point at which it's time to come inside, whether it's too rainy or too cold or too smoky for some of us. And so having a canopy lets you extend when plan A is useful. And so it's great to have one of some sort and to have it be as sturdy as possible. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it without one. It's just less of the time. And so I would encourage schools to do it regardless of whether you have a shelter, just you plan differently if you don't. And there we were looking if your districts will allow you to put in carports. It's kind of a funny sounding suggestion, but when you look at the offerings, they're quite sturdy. They seem like they hold up. They're meant to hold up in high wind and rain and snow, made of steel, same price as a tent. And so those might be better options if the tents are sold out too, and they don't have guide wires that go down to the side. So that we have in our cost estimate chart on the outdoor infrastructure page, there are some links to example carports that are big, 30 by 30 kind of size for a whole classroom. Those are just some ideas. Others, if other folks have ideas, please chime in.
Thank you.
And we also have some pieces about weather that will be coming up shortly, probably in the next few weeks on our website, where we've jumped into that in more detail.
Thanks.
One thing just to add, and one thing that I've been asked to kind of take a look at is understanding what your weather issues are going to be, talking to our garden educators and finding out how many days out of the year are really unteachable outdoors. And really just like, if that's going to be an issue, if that's going to be a question, and knowing and responding with that answer of like, well, this many days a year is really typically the issue. And then taking into account other, for instance, there's an article that just came out about La Nina being an issue, having an impact on our weather patterns in California, at least, and how that's going to impact how many days and how mild the weather is going to be. So just keeping those things in mind and having that information in your back pocket is useful as well.
I see that we are approaching the hour, and it's time to wrap up. We like to begin and end on time. So I want to first thank you, Andra. We didn't properly say thank you at the end of your presentation, so thank you so much for sharing your work. It's fabulous and really inspiring to see it in action. So excited and appreciative of your sharing of that. And thank you everyone for coming today. We are meeting every 2 weeks. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, November 10th. We have two school districts that are tentatively lined up to be our speakers. We'll confirm that shortly, and we'll send that out in the next email. And I think it's really fantastic to see more and more whole school districts coming out with plans in this direction, and we're inspired by what they're doing and know that you will be too. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. Please stay in touch and reach out with any questions you might have. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody. Thank you both for speaking today. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Andra.